Aaron Kuney, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Glad to do it.
Aaron, we're going to talk about the real estate industry, technology in the real estate industry, and we're going to do that by referencing your career and your story in the real estate industry, right? And I want to get started with the basics. What do you do today for a living?
So today, I run property services for Home River Group. Home River Group is the largest national third-party single-family focused property management firm in the U.S. Currently manage about 30,000 units nationwide for both retail owners, so your sort of small private investors, as well as for institutional owners. And so I lead property services, which is essentially everything that needs to be involving fixing a home, whether it's renovating a home and getting it ready to be lived in, whether it's cleaning it up after a tenant moves out of the home, or fixing something while it's broken while a resident is living there. We oversee all of that work.
30,000 properties across the US.
Correct. In about give or take about 55 or 60 markets. So we have a national footprint, even including Hawaii.
That's massive. Tell us a little bit about the size of your team and the size of your vendor network.
Vendor network is a key component of it. So we have about 4,000 or 4,500 vendors that we partner with across the country. Some are local, kind of local plumbers and electricians. Some are more national vendors that are our partners across multiple markets. And then our team, we have some in-house technicians that will, do kind of handle repair and maintenance work in some of our markets where we have more scale. And then there are other markets where we have inspection partners or inspection employees, and then partnering with vendors to kind of manage our execution throughout the rest of that network. So our team is sort of constantly growing right now. We have give or take about 40 technicians right now, and that is actually a big initiative for us to expand that over the coming year.
And you have been in this role for how long now?
I'm pretty new, so I've known the founders of Home River Group. It was founded in 2016. I've known them for close to 10 years. And so predating our relationship sort of predates Home River Group. I've actually only been here about 5 months. So just kind of getting my feet under me, and it's a really interesting time in the property management business, with a lot of headwinds in the market for real estate investors. And so been certainly no shortage of things to do since I arrived about 5 months ago.
How is 2024 looking? And do you have all of your objectives, everything set up for the next year? Kind of.
I mean, I could lie to you and say yes, we've firmed them all up already for next year. No, I would say we have directionally a lot of the key themes, and we're kind of drilling in on some of the details now. But I think that we are anticipating sort of continued headwinds for the investment real estate world into 2024. One of the other components of our business is we actually have an investment arm where we partner and renovate and build a rental portfolio ourselves, and we're expecting lower volume in that segment, and lower increases in properties for our investor clients in the coming year. And so we're preparing for a lot of what we refer to as sharpening our axe in terms of tightening up operations and looking for ways to to expand and operate more efficiently. And we would hope / anticipate, kind of resuming a little more conventional expansion, kind of late next year is probably what we're anticipating.
Got it. Let's go back in memory lane a little bit. Did you always know that you were going to work in real estate? Did you always want to work in real estate? How did you get started?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the short answer is no. I have a liberal arts degree. I have a political science major. I spent about almost 3 years in sort of a financial services role at a Big Four accounting firm right out of college. But really, kind of been in the real estate and construction and investment field really since then, for so close to 20 years. And I've absolutely loved the business since then. I kind of I think liberal arts is one of those, I certainly pursued a path where I almost described the political science as the I'm not sure what I want to be when I grow up major. So it's not like I had real estate investing as a dream, since I was a kid. But I sort of gravitated toward that and have really loved it. And so started in the kind of sales and investment side. And then over the last few years, I've really embraced my role as an operational leader. Right, that's kind of that transition is kind of re-excited me about this path, right? And investing in people and building a great culture and tackling difficult problems, and performing. And so that transition from kind of investor to operator has one that I would say has really fired me up in terms of my outlook for the business and for my career.
What do you like the most about being an operator and being where you are today? It's Sunday, you're thinking about the week ahead. What excites you when you're thinking about the week ahead?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's the ability to help develop people to be able to find, reach new heights professionally, solve problems that they didn't think they could solve, help develop people in ways that they may not have thought were possible. I spend a lot of time with field employees, people who do construction for a living, people who perform repairs. They fix plumbing when it's broken. They replace toilets if they aren't working. They change appliances. This is historically a field that has been underinvested in, and people have not developed leaders, right? They have what you'd call supervisors, right? Or folks who, let's take the best of the project managers in the field and make them the lead project manager, or let's take the most qualified, maintenance technician, make them the lead maintenance technician. But they have been underinvested in teaching them how to be leaders and how to assess their team members and coach them for performance. That's the part that I really love, is helping give people some of those tools, and seeing how effective it can be. I think people really didn't believe historically that type of investment would yield a better overall performance in a group. And I think we've really largely proven that not to be the case. That investment is a high ROI, builds stronger teams that perform better over time, and there's less turnover and a stronger commitment to the organization. and it makes for a better environment to work in. And so driving that type of building that type of environment, and the ability to help invest in people to see them grow is what excites me every Sunday night.
Are there any specific examples that come to mind? You deal with a lot of people, right? A lot of names, a lot of different people. Are there any particular stories that you are super proud of? Like, hey, this one, I saw all the change. I was able to, mentor whatever, and then I saw the effect, right? I love what you said about, investing in people and a group that typically was underinvested in, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, wow. There's a lot. There's a lot of examples. I'd say a couple of levels that stick out to me. Is one is sort of the transition from effective leader to executive, right? So there's been some people who have done pretty well at managing field teams, and then transition that to managing multiple markets of field teams, and seeing them helping them grow into sort of an executive level, being able to communicate effectively about company performance, and look at forecasting, and really kind of up leveling their executive presence. It has been an exciting transition. But I would say the more the bigger focus, and I would say the list is, I could name a bunch of names, but the list is very long, and I might embarrass some people. But I would say the part that excites me more, or the most, is the people who have spent a long time as a lead superintendent or a lead maintenance technician. And lead has really just meant they're responsible for overseeing their time cards and approving days off and maybe managing the schedule. But they haven't really been responsible for coaching for performance, right? Developing those folks, helping them gain skills that they didn't have otherwise, and also being able to deliver feedback about what's not going well, right? Coaching them for better customer service, coaching them for how to communicate more effectively within their team, and being able to have those difficult conversations, that are not just solved for of the I'm the lead maintenance technician, and you just follow me around and until you feel comfortable that you can do the job, and then I kind of shove you on your way, right? Like the transition to, no, I'm going to apply the appropriate style of coaching to the specific needs of those individuals. Seeing that start to come to fruition, and seeing how excited they are about their ability to more effectively lead their team. I've got a million examples of those, but those are the ones that I remember and that I take home with me.
That's very nice, Aaron. And are there any secrets on the way that you communicate with them? Because there's something about what you were saying, that some of these superintendents, some of these people, they just didn't have the training, and you have a lot of training, and you have a lot of experience in the corporate world, right? But I'm guessing that you don't go and just do the whole corporate speech to these people. You kind of translate in between different worlds and kind of get them easily and smoothly and slowly into what it means to be able to operate as an executive or as a leader, etc. Right? What secrets do you have for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think so first of all, I think I have a very big focus on sort of spending time shoulder to shoulder, right? Getting out into the field, whatever the field may be, understanding what their jobs are and listening to them. I also have experience. I ran a lumber yard in Brooklyn, New York, and sold building materials to, contractors and folks who were coming in every morning. So I understand a lot more about their job than the average kind of executive who has been in a corporate role for their entire career. And in the property management world, I sat in a leasing office and I collected rent and I handed out work orders to maintenance technicians and I went and inspected apartments. And so I spent a lot of time with kind of I had a peer one time tell me that the best fertilizer is boots in the dirt, right? And so you get out there and you walk next to people. And some of my favorite times and probably the biggest learnings have been riding in the car or riding in the van with a maintenance technician as they go from house to house, and hearing what frustrates them and using the tools on their iPad that they use in the field, rather than just trying to kind of sit around a boardroom and solve problems for them. And so I think, and then I think you combine the shoulder to shoulder time with sort of a genuine desire to understand what is important to them and to listen. And so I have, I do open office hours that I very clearly block off on my calendar for anyone within the org to set up time with me. I have carved out that time. I don't schedule anything during that time, and I have a couple months worth on my calendar ahead that just set up time with me. And now I've recently started doing these weekly videos that I send out to the team, just specific recognition and to give them a heads up on what's coming. So communication and willingness to listen, and the genuine desire to get out into the field and understand their job, I would say are probably some of the biggest tips that I would give to people.
Lot of stuff that you cannot fake, right? A lot of stuff that you said it multiple times, the passion that you have to develop people, right? And I imagine that when you're growing leaders, that also becomes a prerequisite, right? You can teach, you can teach everything, but if they don't like it.
Yes, no, 100%. There has to be, yes, when you have that many opportunities to engage with people, like people know fake, right? Like they can sniff it out. Authenticity is really important. And so I've tried to balance this authenticity with vulnerability, which is, I don't know, I'm a big, I read a lot of business books. That's kind of my, I don't know, maybe that makes me a nerd, but that I do that for fun. But Brene Brown is one of my, and I guess she's sort of a either self-help, I don't know how you would exactly categorize her, but her book Dare to Lead, she talks a lot about vulnerability as a leader, and the importance of being able to kind of create an environment that allows people to kind of be authentic. And I'm a big believer in the importance of that, because it really helps people feel comfortable and really believe that you care about them, and then you really have to care about them.
Yeah.
And that's an important part of success, I would say, in any organization that I'm a part of.
It's amazing. It's an amazing set of skills, and it's also amazing how that translates to many industries horizontally, because I agree 100% with you, and I like what you say about authenticity, vulnerability, enabling an environment that allows people to just be authentic, and that there's a lot about safety around that, and it's a word that is used, um, it's used a lot, but many times it's used loosely. But do people really mean it? Right? Yeah, I want everyone
Right.
to feel safe, and then you say something that is out of order, and then you have an X marked on your face, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, of
Um,
course.
you have been in different organizations. Have you seen kind of both? And what are some of the best practices to enable that safety?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the answer is I would say I have seen the full spectrum, right? So I mentioned that um, I worked at a lumber yard. I've also worked in startup in the real estate world. I've worked at big public companies, or even kind of call it a conglomerate. Um, I've worked in the tech space, so I think tech has historically um, gotten a reputation for doing some of these things really well. And I've also worked in sort of private equity backed businesses, which maybe deprioritize some of those things a little bit. And I would say all of those experiences along the spectrum have helped lead me to kind of what I believe is important. And that has been, I would say, a very freeing um, journey, because now I would say I lead discussions when I'm contemplating a new, joining a new company. I lead discussions with, these are the things that I care about, and I want to make sure that there's some alignment there. Otherwise, I'm not sure it's worth it for us to continue some of these discussions. And that has been, first of all, very empowering, but also very freeing, because I don't regret walking away from a conversation if there isn't alignment around some of the way that we see the world. And so, I think there's I, I think that has been very helpful for me as I think about what's important. I say to people a lot, like, people join companies and they often lead leaders, or they leave leaders, and they leave culture. And so, I have been at companies that have succeeded despite a despite bad culture and sort of cultural challenges. And frankly, it's because the market was good. Right? The market being good can kind of mask some of those challenges. And so what I have kind of decided for is important to me is I want to start with that. I want to start with what type of, what's your environment, and how do you collaborate as a team, and how do you give how do you performance manage, and how do you set goals as a leadership team. And if there's not some alignment there, then it may not be the right fit for me. And that's probably something, not probably, it is certainly something that earlier in my career I wouldn't have had the experience, or maybe the kind of desire to make sure that it's a priority. I would have said, nah, it'll be fine. We'll figure that stuff out. And the answer is, you usually don't. If it's not there, it's not going to be there.
I think, Aaron, our appreciation of time changes as we as we
That's
live,
right.
and we realize that we have less time, and we want to spend, we just get smarter about who we are going to spend time with, right?
Absolutely. Whether it's colleagues, customers, it's the whole gamut. Time is really valuable.
I want to go back a little bit to real estate as an industry.
Sure.
And there's a lot going on, right, in the real estate industry. We have the high interest rates. We have the recent Supreme Court ruling on broker commissions. There's a million things going on, right? But how do you think the industry is doing today? I know it's a broad question. You can take it whatever place you want to take it.
Yeah. So I think it is a tough it's a tough time for real estate investors. However, I am very I love a lot of the innovation that we are seeing that is doing, it's sort of a, maybe an overused term, but a sort of democratizing real estate investing, making it more accessible for individuals. I think there was a huge evolution, huge wave of this in 2008, 9, 10, 11, kind of coming out of the financial crisis, where you saw the kind of the institutional single family rental business kind of grow and develop from its infancy. A lot of technology, a lot of technology was starting to enable some of that development. I don't think that business happens the same way without the iPad, right? And so that was like sort of a very meaningful inflection point. And at that time, and obviously I'm focusing, when you say real estate, I'm focusing on kind of single family, because that's really where I'm spending a lot of my time. But there was sort of a question at that time of, is this a business that's going to be here in perpetuity? Is this the creation of a new real estate asset class, or is this just a trade? Is this just a people buying distressed homes because prices have collapsed and renting them out until values recover and selling them? I think obviously now that question has been answered. The single family rental business is a forever asset class here in commercial real estate. And so that kind of transition has led to a whole new wave of, I don't think the term prop tech existed 15 years ago. And now there's a million kind of companies out there that are considering themselves prop techs, or real estate kind of focused technology. And some of them have hit some headwinds here recently as a result of the kind of changes in the economy. But there have been tremendous both platform solutions and then point solutions that have been developed over the last few years that are making it that are making our ability to operate at scale better. And I think of this as the institutionalization of the multifamily business. It took 15 or 20 years, right? It started in the 1970s, and it has obviously continues to evolve, but there were leaps that took place over those first 10, 15, 20 years. We're still in the relatively early innings of that for the single family rental world. And in particularly when it comes to third party management, which is what we do, and that's been a really interesting transition for me, going from owning the portfolio and getting to make decisions a certain way about how to manage the assets, versus now being in a service provider, and in a service provider role, and how that's changed a little bit. So I think that we are in the early stages of the continued evolution of this single family rental space, and I much like multifamily, I don't, it's cyclical, right? So we're in a tough cycle where there's a very heavy lens focused on improved operational efficiency. I think when we get back into a phase of rapid acquisition, which I think will always come through the cycle, I think that sort of the focus will change a little bit. But yeah, I'm very bullish long term on the space. And I didn't even really touch on the sort of build to rent element, which is a pretty impactful one. If you look just purely at the data and the number of homes that have been built over the last few years, like we have underbuilt since the financial crisis in 2008, 9. We have underbuilt by hundreds of thousands of homes. And so that is still a dynamic where we need to catch up from, and it's going to take years to continue that process. And so that supply demand dynamic should be a tailwind for our business for years to come.
There's always talk about the recession, right? Are we heading towards a recession? Are we in a recession? What happens, right? I mean, you said many important things, right? Single family is now a forever asset class. That's, history has shown that is the case. It's still cyclical, right? Today, efficiency is key. And then do you think that when does the time come when, investors get more aggressive in acquiring new homes? Is that during a recession when prices go down, where we have more supply? What are you expecting next in the next few years?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So a lot of difficult dynamics at play there, right? We have interest rates are clearly a challenge. And when you look at kind of portfolio buyers of investment real estate, they have leveraged inexpensive debt to grow their portfolios over the last few years. And largely through the securitization market, which is challenged right now. And when you look at sort of duration on some of the loans that have been supporting these acquisitions, and so that I am not in anywhere qualified to predict interest rates. But I do think that there is a certain amount of kind of capital gathering around the sidelines and waiting to be able to call a peak in interest rates, because that will enable a little bit of a clearer windshield about what's in front of them to align their capital deployment strategies and their acquisition strategies for single family homes. There's this combination. I think home builders are also, obviously extremely interest rate sensitive, and have been managing supply. I think more than is ideal for home buyers. Home buyers cannot, first time home buyers are extremely supply constrained right now. And I think that is going to take some time to work its way through the system. If we just try to build our way out of this, we're talking about years and not months to reach a bit more balance. And so I think that, well, ultimately, we believe that is a tailwind for the rental business, because people are going to be renters longer, right? Inflation means people can save less for down payments for a home because they're spending more of their income on living. And so that means that people likely need to rent longer. And so we believe that long term, that's a tailwind. That's a tailwind for our business. It's also a great challenge for us, because we want to be able to deliver a top-notch resident experience, an extremely efficient and sort of seamless resident experience, which makes renting for longer more enjoyable. I lived many years in New York City. I didn't consider becoming a homeowner till I was well into my 30s. That is we're seeing more and more common with millennials, and I think will continue to be the trend into the next generation. So overall, we believe, sort of tailwinds for the rental business. And I can say that without effectively having to predict a peak in interest rates.
Aaron, there's a whole narrative about foreign investors in real estate and rentals. As an insider, right? I consider you to be an insider in the industry. What do you see? Do you see that a lot? Do you see a lot of foreign investments, or not so much? Was that period over?
I think it ebbs and flows, right? And I think that we're absolutely seeing now is, I would say, there has been an influx in foreign capital, particularly in kind of gateway cities. They are often not as price sensitive. They're looking for long-term capital appreciation, and in fact, a lot of the single family rental markets, where homes are sort of the core single family rental markets, where homes are actually less expensive than some of the kind of gateway cities, have been suboptimal for foreign investors who are looking to put out lots of capital quickly. And so, your cities like New York and San Francisco and Miami have historically attracted a lot of that capital. And we have seen that sort of flow into and out of the single family, kind of more conventional single family rental space over time. I think there's also now some really great operators who, and sort of asset managers who are focused on managed accounts for those investors. So, when you say democratization, you're not usually thinking of like, foreign family offices, but they now have the ability through partnerships to acquire portfolios of single family rentals that might be, provide a better, or at least a more balanced kind of portfolio allocation than, single condos on Miami Beach, as they may have purely invested in 15 years ago. So it's an interesting, there's more diversification opportunities for them.
Let's go back a little bit to technology and kind of the promise versus the reality versus the hype. Like you said, there's a lot of technology in prop tech. There's a lot of promises as well. There's a lot of driving to a place where if I'm a home buyer, I can do everything with my phone, right? I can find, the place I want to invest in. I can get all the services I need. I don't even have to visit the property. I can close online. I can do everything online, and then I can track what's going on. What are your thoughts there? Where are we? What are you excited that you think is working really well? And what kind of raises that hype alarm when you're looking at marketing versus reality?
No, it's interesting. I mean, I think, with the number of times that you hear AI mentioned, and how few people really know what they mean when they say that right now, there's definitely a disconnect between sort of hype and reality. I actually feel like, despite all of the advancements in prop tech, I would largely look and say, I know what I was doing in 2009 and 10 when we started to grow our first kind of single family rental platform. I would say the differences in how we operate today, I would have expected more advancement to happen in, the 14 years or so since then. I think partly that is related to the issue I mentioned earlier, which is people weren't sure whether this was just a temporary, a temporary trade or a forever asset class. And so I think that led to people not investing in the type of technology solutions that they might have had they known with conviction from day one that it was going to be here in 15 years. So I think there's been a lot of point solutions developed that have slices of things that they have decided to tackle and make easier. It is still very difficult to string those together in the how to cobble those together into an effective tech stack is still something that everyone is tackling differently. Even some of the bigger companies that have pieced together that probably own a bigger swath or bigger a part of that spectrum, even they don't do the whole thing, or they don't do the whole thing in a way that is meeting the needs of their customers. And so people are still looking elsewhere. And so, I mean, in particular, when you think about single family operations, even the companies that have grown through the venture path and have invested in a significant tech development, all are still partnering with or finding ways to partner with other groups because they haven't fully developed everything themselves. And so there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go, and I would say every step that I have taken in the space has led to it's like, okay, let's first evaluate what we have. Are we happy with it? Do we need a new solution? What are we willing to give on, and what do we need to develop ourselves? We have those buy build conversations all the time. And what I have tried to say is, if we are still having buy versus build discussions when I am an operator and not a technology company, it means that the solution doesn't exist yet. And so that the end state is not there. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's still a long way to go. We've made some progress. Probably, I wish maybe more, but there's still a lot of runway left for us to figure out what the best answer is. Hold on. I think I lost your audio for a second. You there?
If for someone that is trying to get in the industry, and it's just listening and saying, hey, this sounds interesting, what would be your advice in terms of what are the keys to succeed, right, in this industry?
Great question. So I think there are clear paths now, and I'll think specifically about the single family rental space. There's a little clearer paths now because there's some tremendous companies that have now been around for 8, 10, 12 years. And they're great training grounds. There's paths of acquisitions and asset management. There's paths into this space with being a renovations professional or a maintenance technician. I think, if I'm just setting foot, and I always recommend, solid training with an existing stable company where you can get some exposure to the full life cycle and you're not as sensitive to market fluctuation, right? That's a great way to get initial experience. And it's also easier if you have an idea of what segment of that business that is the most exciting to you, and you can there's ways to sort of find specializations early on. I think there's also some really great. I mean, one of the things that's amazing about real estate is that there are still some there's some smaller operations where you can wear a million hats and get exposed to the full life cycle all in one day. And so I think and that's actually the path that I originally chose when I started to get into this space, was working with a small portfolio owner and an individual investor, and I found them by driving around multifamily properties or going to real estate auctions and talking to people. I mean, it was like that is, and ultimately saying, I want to come work with you. I want to learn your business. And I think that was there's still opportunities for that in real estate, and in many cases more than in other businesses, because there are now opportunities to kind of professionalize and institutionalize even at a very small scale. And I think some of it depends on your risk tolerance, and it depends on your kind of your desire, kind of where you see your path. But I really value those days, and I think, back to your question about how you connect with people. The fact that I have some of those shared experiences from early on, where I was doing a lot of these jobs, or at least accompanying people and learning from them, and being next to them while these were happening, was became a big part of, kind of, I would say, is a big tool in my toolkit, if you will.
So try to see the whole process, the bigger picture as much as possible, so that then, and you can specialize, but it's better to do it once you understand the whole thing, right? And a lot of networking.
So. I think that's been very helpful for me. I think one of the things that's been very sort of a big key of mine is I probably know more about the investment side of the business than a lot of operators, and I know more about the operations than a lot of investors. Right. And so, and it's because I've been able to live the entire life cycle, and have exposure and sort of depth of knowledge about each of those steps, before I then chose, kind of a specialization downstream.
Got it. And for some people listening, that means a lot of patience as well, right? Aaron was talking about risk tolerance, the desire, and then the patience. Some people just want things like tomorrow, and you got to go through the process, right?
You
gotta go through the process.
There's no magic pill. There's no question that patience is, and it's something that I remember being in grad school and hearing, and a lot of times in grad school, they'll bring speakers or alumni in to talk to the business students, and they always want to hear about their keys to their success, and all of them would say something to the effect of, well, I was in the right place at the right time. And that always drove me nuts, because I said, well, how do I replicate that? I can't just go practice being in the right place at the right time. Well, you actually can, right? It's, work hard, align yourself with good people, get a sense, have an opinion about what's going on in the market, have an opinion on what's going on more broadly than just the day-to-day of your job, and have that help inform your ability to be in the right place at the right time. There's a lot that goes into enabling you to be in the right place at the right time. That's the part that maybe they were being humble and they just didn't point that out. But I've kind of learned that over time. There's a lot more than just saying you're in the right place at the right time. There's a lot that goes into that.
Yes, definitely. Aaron, one last question to you. What do you
Yeah.
do when you are not working?
That's a good question. So first and foremost, I'm a husband, and I'm a teenage girl dad. So I have two teenage daughters. One is a very committed dancer, and the other is a very competitive swimmer. So that means a lot of sitting at swim meets and a lot of driving back and forth to dance rehearsals and swimming practices, and that takes a lot of my time. Last year I checked off a bucket list item, and I ran the New York City Marathon.
Wow.
Had wanted that had been on my bucket list for 20 years, and so and I'm probably going to be training for another marathon coming up next year. Which I didn't think I would do. I thought I would only do one, and now I think we're gonna try another one. And I'm a pretty big reader. I try to read a little bit every day, and so as I said, I do some number of business books. I'm rereading Atomic Habits right now by James Clear. I don't know if you know that book, but that's one of my favorites. I'm rereading that one. And I also do a lot of biographies, love sports. So I'm reading a biography about Kobe Bryant right now, which
Wow.
is great. He's tremendous,
Yeah.
tremendous guy. So yeah, so that about covers it.
It's busy. Your that
Yeah.
work already makes it busy, and then
Oh,
you
you're
keep
not kidding.
busy with the marathon. Everything. You're my hero.
Oh,
I
I
always thought
appreciate
about the
it. Thank
marathon,
you.
but then running the whole, 42
Oh,
kilometers.
it's a
Only
long way.
thinking about it, my feet hurt, and I get anxious. But
For sure, for sure. Awesome.
Aaron, this has been great. Thank you so
Ah,
much for being a guest at my show.
pleasure.
I hope we can do it again. And
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me. It was wonderful. And thanks for doing it. I appreciate it.